Be willing to dance with your confusion whenever you're confused. Jump into confusion. You don't want to manifest a life of confusion, but as the thing that you approach, that you seek to learn and want to conquer seems confusing at first, jump all the way head into it. Learn one part at a time. First get the scope of what it is in its fullness. Look at it from a distance, and then sector by sector, piece by piece, just begin to master what it is that you're confused about. And what's going to happen is you're going to become less and less confused. You're going to learn one thing, all right, then you master that, and then you add on and so forth. The slightest of knowing in a sea of confusion will reverberate throughout your entire experience to what is called knowing. Knowing. You want to know. Ving Rhames said, we don't want to think, we want to know. We want to know. And that's bigger than believing. We don't want to just believe, we want to know. We don't believe that our heart is continuing to beat. This is something we know. This is something we feel. That knowledge, that knowing is what can combine the very mystical to the very logical. You want to marry these two. You want to put the fantastical and the logical side by side, because the logical has fantastical revelation, and fantasy becomes reality when logic is added to it. See, it might be a fantasy for you to be rich, to live a paradise life, but the logic is that you're going to be attracting the people and working on your lure and working on your bait and working on your tackle to fish these men, to fish these women, to be able to capture the minds of people so that you can gain the monetary support that you are aiming for, because this is going to be connected to your fantasy, or it's going to come in some other way. But you still want to have an action plan on the ground that you're executing, no matter how it looks, no matter what the results look like. You just keep on trying, because you're adding feet to your action, you're adding faith to your works. I know it's confusing. I know life can be confusing. Different new activities can be confusing. Different stages in life can be confusing. But don't let the confusion cower us into a corner. Let's jump into the confusion. Let's swim into the triple black primordial sea. Let's discover. Let's swim through our consciousness. Let's swim through our fears. Let's swim through our anxieties. Let's dive into those things on an introspective base, on a one-to-one base. You and you, or as they say in Rastafarianism, I and I. You want to have that introspectus to keep you going when things get confusing, because you have to learn how to move with the rhythms of what you don't know. And you really have to not allow your ego to coach you out of the game either, to shoot you out of the game, because sometimes confusion can cause us to put a guard up. Might be connected to some trauma that was connected to something that may have happened, where we may have been embarrassed based on something we didn't know and had to face public shame because of something we didn't know. Not that we were ignorant, but something we were unlearned about. We were not introduced to. We didn't. This isn't particularly pertaining to the cases where we see the truth and ignore it and go on anyway. That's different. But just the typical pure confusion of having approached something that you've never seen before or experienced before. I'm saying this because each day of life, moments in the day, if you're paying attention, are including so many elements of things that we never really sensed or felt before, things we never really seen before. There's a lot of things that have happened in the last 3 years all over the world that, unless you're 300 or 400 years old, you never really seen it before. So it's confusing. It can be confusing if you don't have a blueprint, if you don't have certain knowledge about certain things. You won't be able to know what to look for. You won't be able to know where to stand. You won't be able to know how not to fall. You may stumble, but stumbling is not the same as falling. You don't get hurt from stumbling, not necessarily, but falling can hurt you. The stumble is to get the rhythm, to know what levels of the confusion you're solving, to know what side you stand on. This applies to all things. So I say, don't run from the confusion, jump into the confusion, because on the other side of that is wisdom.